Hello everyone, welcome to the Statera podcast. Today I'm joined by Ross, who's back again after a bit of a hibernation, and Daniel, who returns again for his second podcast. We wanted to get the three of us together, ever since we looked at doing these podcasts, and finally today is the day. So really looking forward to having a good chat to you guys. We thought we'd look at a couple of different topics, but the one we'd start with is sort of childhood development and education, and how that pertains to society and the betterment of society, or to the disadvantages of society as well, depending on how it goes. So yeah, what do you reckon, guys? We'll get stuck in and have a bit of a chat about it.
Cool. So you were saying earlier on in the week, I believe in a message, you were working somewhere and you noticed a few people walking by. Was that where it kind of started?
Yeah,
observation started?
Yeah, we're working at the Royal Show, so you can imagine there was quite a lot of families walking past, and just behavioural traits of parents, and how they talk to their kids, how they treated their kids, and it was quite an eye-opener, really, to see, especially from a disciplinary act and, the whole thing of a child really needs some sort of structure in their life, guidance about what's right or wrong, how different parents handle that. And I saw some really just bad cases of what I would think is the right way to do it. But of course, it's all relative.
That's right.
But it got me really thinking about how does that then sort of enforce itself onto society as that child grows older, and that child learns to interact with other people, both people that are better off than them, and also people that are more disadvantaged than them as well. So and linked in with education, school education and things like that. I thought it'd be quite interesting to talk about.
A huge topic. First of all, the Royal Show, there's how many thousands of people there each day. So it's quite easy to observe parents, I guess, being not so positive as a parent towards their kids. It's going to be one of the most high pressure, crowded places for them.
Sure.
In saying that, of course, it exemplifies the bad parenting out there. So it's certainly a case out there in society. So
also the Royal Show does kind of attract a particular type of family too. I know a lot of families that definitely would not go there. So
I haven't
really
been there in
interesting
20 years.
insight into that kind of parenting and that kind of upbringing that's happening.
Yeah, it's usually from a certain socioeconomic background. Is that what you mean?
Not just
well,
that. It's just if you think about the type of people you see there, generally they're not the type of people you would see at maybe a meditation ceremony.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
It's people who are very you would think of you identify as Western families, really, like the core of this kind of.
Let's go and buy some presents and some showbags for our kids. Let's show Johnny, some colours and some shows, some rides and stuff like that.
The consumerist, the consumerism part of the show by these families is one thing that's really striking and alarming, and I guess that's sort of, and it's not to say this is right or wrong, or we're not, we're looking at this as subjectively as we can, but the showing love and showing appreciation towards these kids by instead of doing something like taking them out to a bushland area, and I'm sure people do that, to the hills, whatever it might be. There's this real focus, like once a year, the Royal Show's on, let's go buy as much shit as we need, or as we don't need, you could probably say, to show our love for these kids.
And how often do you see a parent there calm and relaxed and happy? It's very rare. Very rare. They're all stressing out. There's like a lot of kids do this, watch out, kids running everywhere, and it's just...
Well, one story on that really got me thinking, wow, it was like late at night, maybe about 8 o'clock on the Wednesday night, I think, and there's this little girl who'd sort of gone running off. She must have been about 6 or 7, so not too young. And her mum grabbed her. It was right in front of me. She goes, "What have I told you? This is pedophile fucking central around here."
Oh my god!
This little 6-year-old kid. And I was like, oh, what? And I'm sure this child probably didn't know what pedophile means, and even the fact she used the word pedophile probably doesn't really matter. But just the tone of the voice, and using an expletive in that sentence as well, really just hammering it at that kid. I was like, come on, there's a way to be able to enforce a sort of discipline on a child, so some sort of rule or boundary, and that really shouldn't be it,
Discipline.
And then how does that affect then that child's behaviour and behaviour into adulthood?
You got to kind of ask yourself, the parents, right? They don't really realise what they're doing. they have learnt this from their
exactly.
parents.
Well, it's a
or
cycle.
from
Yeah.
society itself.
Yeah.
You know? So they don't understand that they're not actually connecting with love with their children. They don't realise it.
So how do you break that cycle? Because that is definitely true. That's definitely true.
I think introspection and really looking at it, going in with yourself, and we'll have to also say too, none of us are parents either. 3 of us aren't parents, so should we maybe just change conversation?
Not that I know of, anyway.
Exactly. But we're on the other end of parenting. We're children.
We've come through a parenting cycle. We've been taught.
Hey, so how were you guys brought up? I'll start by saying that I believe my childhood, my upbringing, and my parents was pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I believe I'm well adjusted and all the rest of it, and my parents were great. Discipline followed by love. Always a part of the same thing. You can discipline. How many times have I told you there's pedophiles around here?
Yeah.
But follow that up with, if they're upset especially, follow that up with, look, Johnny, I love you very much. The reason why I spoke to you about that and in that tone was because of this, and this.
Yeah.
A hug and a cuddle, love you very much, sleep well.
Sure.
That kind of thing. I think that's a pretty simple formula, if you like, for parenting. So anyway, my upbringing was pretty good. What about yours?
Just
as we comment
before
on parenting.
before I say that, a comment on that. I stayed with a lady recently, lovely lady. Like she is the symbol of love. She practices love, and she's not Ayurveda. She practices Ayurveda.
Sorry, what's Ayurveda?
Ayurveda is like I'm not going to do it justice here. Look it up. Maybe it's
okay.
more about health and nutrition, and it's about understanding your body, understanding what you're putting in, understanding your practices, and that sort of thing. It's from India.
How do you spell it?
Ayurveda. Ayurveda. But anyway, so she is a lovely lady, and her daughter, 6-year-old daughter, she it was one particular comment that she was telling me about. She said, "Mummy, thanks for getting angry at me sometimes." So she understands that she needs, some form of. She understands that her mum is doing the best thing for her when she tells her off sometimes.
Yeah. What a well-adjusted child then.
Amazing. She's such a lovely child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to give you my background,
Yeah.
I had a really interesting mix. I don't want to go into too much detail.
No, of course not.
But I had a good balance. Like on one side, I could see maybe what not to do with my life, but also from that side, I got given the intellectual side. Like I got taught something really important about my intellect, and then on the other side, I got the caring and the loving. And so, I mean, it really contrasted each other, but for me, I think it was the perfect upbringing.
Perfect balance. The perfect Statera.
Yeah, for me to be who I am right now. So it was really nice and balanced.
Yeah, right. Cool.
Yourself?
Yeah, I guess mine was sort of start off alright, but then it became quite difficult with, I was in a family that battled mental health issues, and at the time didn't know what those were exactly, but I was similar to yours, I guess. I had sort of one, I won't go into details about what was what, but had one parent who battled mental health issues and was pretty much a non-entity in the family dynamic, and then another one who gave a love and a sort of comfort, I guess. But yeah, when you talk about parents and what sort of role models they can be, I think parents can also be negative role models, if that makes sense. You can look at how parents behaved and acted, and you can say, no, that's not what I want to do, or that's not the way to behave. So I don't think parents necessarily always have to be positive role models. It's possible, as long as the child's got a good base and a good perspective on life and behaviour as well. They can look at the negative aspects of someone. It doesn't have to be a parent, it can be anyone, and say, no, that's ridiculous. That's not how you're supposed to act, and then apply that to their own life as well.
Really comes down to the fact that the child is a separate human being.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I came across some concepts in parenting recently, actually, funnily enough, about where you do actually treat your child as a separate human being and not as your child. So your role as a parent is to give this child, this human being, everything it needs to be able to develop through all of its stages.
Support and facilitate, almost guide at most.
Exactly. Not tell
Help when
them,
needed.
not
Yeah.
tell
No
them what
leash.
to do.
You seen those parents with leashes?
Yeah.
There's plenty of those at the
leash.
show. Yeah, that was me. I was always wandering off. I was always like at shops. I was a kid. I was always be like, would Adrian's mum please come up to the front counter? And, I was always like that. And that's how. And then I was thinking about that the other day because I was looking at kids on leashes as well. But I was thinking, fuck, that was me. Then I was like, that's how I am now. That's sort of, I'm no real different to that. I'd like to go wandering off and go and venturing out and experiencing new things. So,
Right on, man. Right on.
even though it was hard for my parents at the time, as it would be, it's probably was the best thing for me as well. Yeah.
I had a parent who, one of my parents was not so much controlling or anything like that, but I was in focus. My other parent, go for it, go and explore.
Yeah.
Similarly to how you turned out naturally. Go and explore. We also had 14 acres of bush in Darwin, so a great place to go and explore. I would just disappear. My older brother would be doing his own thing. My parents would be doing their thing, working in the nursery. And I was, from a young age, just wandering off in the bush.
Wow.
Just wandering all day. I knew that way was home.
Yeah, right.
And if the
Awesome.
thunderclouds came in at 4 or 5 p.m, which they do in the build up to the wet season, I would leave, and it was great.
Yeah.
So wandering off and exploring is a huge thing, and I'm glad that one of my parents was able to have not so much foresight or insight, but some kind of natural instinct, perhaps like your parents did, to let me wander, to let me question, to let me explore, to
And
let
most
me be
importantly,
me.
to let you make some mistakes as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
To
that's a
learn
massive
from
thing,
mistakes.
isn't it? Yeah.
We
The
don't
whole
wanna be
risk
pushy.
aversion that we have now in society especially is really detrimental to kids' development.
Risk aversion,
Really.
absolutely, big time. Completely agree.
And it is, I think that's something that's been conditioned into us, really.
It is.
Going back into, especially with media and that real fear
Health
campaign about what
insurance,
can happen to kids.
all
Yeah,
this stuff.
insurance, all that sort of stuff, I guess, is a big part of it too with schools and
Public
schoolyards.
liability and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we need to take risks as children. We need to, the whole saying, graze our knees and do things like that. It's a really important part of our growing.
And part of that, exactly, the extension of what you're saying as well, would be if we're born into this world of liability and insurance and all this kind of stuff, looking after yourself, too much, pampering ourselves and cushioning ourselves, you manifest it. If you're born into that, don't explore. I can't explore because pedophiles. If I don't, within reason, of course, then you can manifest that, and all of a sudden you're lost, and you're not exploring, you're not going to Peru, you're not going all around the world, so on and so forth. So very key.
Daniel, I think we didn't really get further into that point you were bringing up. You were raising about we went off on a tangent. But what was
okay.
it? What was it?
What were we talking about?
The parenting technique about allowing the child to grow up naturally.
That's right. Yeah. As an independent.
And that is
being,
really essentially the role of the parent. Like,
Sure.
I think a lot of people become parents without being ready to be a parent.
Yep.
They don't understand the
Yeah.
responsibilities that they actually have.
Sure.
And then they go into parenting with no idea whatsoever, and then just do the best that they can.
Yeah.
Based on what they've already learned and what society has told them and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Whereas if you wait until you're actually ready to be a parent, that's the best time to be a parent, because then you can provide exactly what this child needs. You don't have to have experience in doing that to be able to start it. You just need to understand that. That's all.
Yeah,
Understand
sure.
that that's your role. That's your responsibility.
Yeah.
If you're bringing a child into this world, you
better
need to
be ready.
able to provide and allow the security and protection, and allow all of that, the natural development of the child.
Yeah.
But what happens is instead sometimes is parents will have a child because they've got some emotional lacking, especially, so they think they need this other being to help fulfill that, or that old chestnut of the relationship going downhill, and I think we'll have a baby to remedy that
together.
situation. It's really not for the right reason, and
Absolutely.
that happens more often than not. But maybe that's is that the way it's sort of always been though? It's just an expected part of a relationship is to have a child. It's been that way since day dot. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not sure either, but I mean, it's got to have something to do with the whole propagation of the human race.
the biological factors behind it.
It would have been around since a long
Yeah.
time.
Since the beginning,
Yeah.
you get together to procreate.
Mm-hmm.
But it used to, I guess, be more about that. It wasn't. You wouldn't even have a relationship necessarily. Just okay, you'd fuck to have a baby because you wanted to fuck and you knew that was part of your biological makeup. But then it got into this more, could you call it a religious doctrine of getting married, having a relationship, and then that's what you're supposed to do, rather than the other way around. Whereas animals, we should just really be like the primates do. They don't worry about relationships. They just have children. Have little monkeys.
Yeah, little monkeys. I mean, the difference being there, I guess, is that slightly differently to primates and all the rest of it, we've become quite evolved, haven't we? And
we've developed communities
and with that
cultures,
with that development and civilization and all that, becomes complication and all this questioning, which we're talking about now, and we get lost. The meaning gets lost in the advancement of the Western world or the world, and we forget what it's all about. Whether it's fucking and having children, or whether it's making love and having children, or having some kind of communion or union of two wonderful beings, which through synchronicity meet. And look, I see it as extremely beautiful and magical. The moment of conception and all that, that's all wonderful, yeah, sure, but the moment of when a child is born, it is a being, in inverted commas, a being inside the woman's womb. Then he or she is born into this world, and they are two separate beings. It's a creation of a whole new universe. It's a creation of a whole new entity, I find that completely, almost completely overwhelming or something.
Does it happen at birth though, or does it happen earlier in the process?
Well, this is a big question.
Yeah.
Either or, both.
What I was thinking about recently is that
childbirth is
our being, our human species, we have evolved over many millions and millions and millions of years. But at some point in the past, we would have lived in the oceans, maybe, for example, and we would have put our eggs and stuff down there under crevices, or and protected it that way. Then somehow, when we came to land, we turned into mammals, and we started putting them inside. So that whole process would have taken millions of years just to evolve that process. But imagine, like, keeping your baby inside for protection. That's like this natural thing that we do. We need to protect the child. We need to help it, give it that development stage, because otherwise out there it might not have the right development to turn into a full human being. In here, it can stay in there for long enough to get to a stage where it's ready to then face the outside world,
Yes.
Yeah.
So then we should also continue that, going back to the whole thing about providing the environment for the kid. It's the same thing. It's the same innate, natural thing that I think we should be connecting with, bringing it into the world and continuing that development process.
Here's a question. Excuse that runny nose. Are some people just not meant to be parents? I.e., something like some people take away all the support networks, parents, grandparents, and welfare and all the rest of it. Take away all of that, and you're just left with a mother, father, and a child. Do you think that some people just weren't meant to be parents? I don't know. That's
I think
a terrible question.
It's a very tough, it's a complex question as well. I mean, everyone has, a male and female has a biological ability to have children. It's whether they have the mental and emotional, and you can say spiritual capacity to do it as well. But yeah, I think everyone does deserve the right to be a parent.
Of course.
But then, if you decided no, how would you legislate that? How would you enforce that?
I don't think anyone has the right to be able to tell someone that they can't have a kid.
Yeah, to do anything really.
Yeah, it's
really
up to the individual to make the realizations, I think.
Yeah.
Or say, I'm ready, or I'm not suitable right now, that sort of thing.
But sometimes ego gets in the way, I guess, and we spoke about before. Yeah, culture as well.
Culture's the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, but that's changing now as well, don't you think? I mean, compared to like our parents' generation, where it was expected, there was something wrong with you didn't have children. Like I'm 32 and I'm single with no children. Back 30 years ago, I was like, well, what's going on here? What's wrong with you?
Time's getting on. Hey,
Exactly.
hurry up.
Yeah, but it's not really an issue now. I don't find it an issue particularly, and but times are changing as far as that aspect goes, and those people who feel like they're not really capable or able to have children or be good parents can choose not to now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting also I found is that our culture is quite significantly different to other cultures around the world, and you can see even what would be considered third world you see some of the most amazing children.
Yeah, sure.
Because the parents are more in touch with that. Whereas
Yeah.
here, we're all lost in our mundane lives. You know, I've got to get a career, I've got to work my job, I've got to study, I've got to do this. Not that that's all bad, any of that's bad. It's just that we're constantly occupied with that.
Sure.
So we're not allowing the time to connect.
There's a disconnect.
It's a lot more simple in those third world countries and second world countries where all the parents have is a bit of land, some shelter, and hopefully some food, like crops and whatever else, and their child and their family.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the child is brought up with love and everything that it needs to help procure the farm and the food, and it just continues on, and they get a smile and love out of I'm sure seeing the fruits of their labour, out of a little wheel that they make their own toy out of.
But then we instead though in our culture, in our society, instead of those things we have things like this, like a TV and a phone. How many times do you see kids like they'll be doing something, walking around with their parents,
years of age, man.
and they'll be on an iPad or whatever, and there's that real, I think there's that, it looks like to me from outside looking in, like there is that disconnect with parents. And going back to what you said before about generally in our society, again, the mother needs to generally work as well, not full-time but at least part-time to just live, to afford a mortgage. So again, there's a disconnect with these kids there. That must cause some sort of issue as far as child development goes.
Big time.
That disconnect.
On that note, is huge. That's probably one of the most important points. The other thing too was on that point that you said the mother is encouraged through society and culture to work at least part-time while they've had a child or whatever.
Which they have every right to, I should say, and I think it's even beneficial for I think for mothers to be able to spend 2 or 3 days working a week if they want to, and
absolutely,
just to a bit of a breather,
And in that case, and the father is working, and if the father isn't in $1 million job or quite a wealthy job, there's pressure on the father, and then that brings in a whole other complex set of issues like, the father feels like he has to work. And the mother's at home, and then you get fathers wanting to be stay-at-home fathers, and the mum being out. There's no rule or anything like that, but there's pressure as well to work. Where I'm sure these people with no pressures, that are just looking after their crops off the grid, so to speak. Third world countries, second world countries, whatever. There's no pressure except to feed the family. There's no pressure to buy TV and iPhones and all this kind of stuff. So somewhere in there. Apart from being lost in the Western culture, parenting being lost in the Western culture, is that the parents have forgotten or feel that they are pressured into working as opposed to loving for the children. This brings me up to what I wanted to say, which was parents as role models and teachers as surrogate parents. Where the parents just aren't there for the kids. They haven't even given them that guidance. Here's the tools for the child. Go for it. They haven't even got that for them because they're broken. I'm pressured under working. I should be working. Blah 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 blah. So, in that, somehow that cycle needs to be broken as well. Maybe like you said before.
Well, this
self-reflection
is where
and all
education
that,
comes in, I think.
Yeah.
Because currently our
mainstream,
curriculum. Our mainstream curriculum, our mainstream education is. Let's face it, we all realise this now, that it is purely to get yourself into the system.
Yeah.
There's no other
to make you a
purpose for
robot.
it.
That's all it is. Makes you a
robot's
robot.
a tough term, but
a sheep?
It's preparing you for this system.
Sure, yeah.
It's preparing
this
you
structure
so,
we have.
Yeah, it's teaching you how to be part of this society.
Yep.
Whereas it's missing a lot, especially in terms of what's missing. I think the biggest thing it's missing, and this is the reason why I will never send my kids to a public or private school here in Australia, is it's not realizing that there are development periods and stages, and it's well known in psychology and it's not well known around the world that you go through different stages of development as you're growing up. We completely ignore that in our Western education, whereas there are other types of schooling like the Montessori. Yeah, Montessori is one of them. The Steiner schooling is amazing. They
homeschooling.
Yeah, homeschooling as well, but you have to be a responsible parent to be able to do that. But they really understand the stages. They get it. They get the stages of development, and they allow this child to go through those stages, and they give the child a creative
huge,
which is a big thing as well.
Yeah.
So you have to have a creative outlet. You have to have room to do self-exploration and to do intellectual work as well. And this kind of schooling provides that. So that I think would be an interesting way to start to get a population to realize, and to start reaching more potential in its people to go through a different alternative schooling system.
I think, you've got a great point there. It's more of a community aspect. And one thing that I messaged you to about a couple of days ago when we looked at doing this podcast was I wanted to discuss sort of the like our ancestors' versions of village living, where basically every adult was a teacher to a particular child. It didn't matter who the parents were. We've got that same system set up now where the teachers are within an institution that's separated from the basic biological development, mental development of these children. And we've made it a sterile environment. So, the child, if they're fortunate, have parents to help sort of direct them in the right way, and some do, some don't. But then the whole purpose is to go to school, and it should really be the teachers there be able to give them that approach that some of these schools like Montessori and Steiner do. But instead, for 90% of students, 90% of kids, like you said, they're raised and brought up and sort of taught to behave in a certain way, in a certain structure, and it's not the way human beings are at all, And then it really gets to, you'd think it gets, I know it happened to me when I got to like 15, 16, I was like, what the fuck is this? This is bullshit. What, I've had like these last 12 years of, not like 12, say 10 years of schooling, and they're directing me to be a certain type of person. And I'm not that person. And that's where rebellion comes into it, which is a healthy thing, rebelling.
Yep.
But what do we do? Like, how do we get it so we have more of that original community village feel, I guess, where everyone becomes a teacher to a child, and do it.
Example. It's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
There are people out there practicing this now, and they're great parents.
Sure.
And as we all become more spiritually aware, we will make great parents, I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind.
I really can't wait to have kids one day.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
but
especially after the last 2 or 3 years and what I've learned, I cannot wait to have children now.
Yeah. So I mean, we would live by practice.
Sure.
Actually, an example. So do it the right way, and then other people will start catching on. And that's the only way to spread anything like this, I think.
Get the 100 monkey thing going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The more people doing it, the more people will realise, oh wow, he's got a great kid.
Sure.
And then so more people will start doing that. And then even your kids will start, doing the same method to their kids.
Yeah, sure.
It's a multiple generation thing, and it's slowly changed, I think.
Well, maybe also with technology, it's going to facilitate a way to be able to get out of those structures that the government and the church place, I guess, in education.
Absolutely.
We can look at our own different, starting up our own schools and doing that as part of a community, and why not?
Yeah, well, I think it's slowly happening with homeschooling. I've heard a couple of people who do homeschooling. There's a network of families that are involved with homeschooling, and the network has no physical walls. It's World Wide Web kind of thing. Yeah. So so the potential is huge.
Sure.
And of course, then if you're part of this, let's say online homeschooling community, you find out that there's another family with similar age kids 2 streets away, 2 blocks away, 2 suburbs away, whatever. And then all of a sudden you pull your resources, it becomes easier. And I'm sure they also said that there's some kind of, not so much subsidy, but some kind of help from the government. Because in the end, there's some kind of help from the government as well in terms of here's some resources, here's access to some resources as well, blah, blah, blah. So, it's certainly out there. It's a bit quiet at the moment. But we're talking about it now, so other people would be as well.
Well, actually, 2 of the biggest problems of homeschooling at the moment is that, one, the kids don't have other kids to play with.
So which is a massive thing.
Having a network like that would just make it so much better.
Yeah.
To have the kid, at least an opportunity to then meet other people who are also other kids who are also going through the same thing.
A balanced education. So that, an emotional, spiritual, and physical. And all those things: maths, English, sport,
meditation.
Meditation. I was just going to say another word, but meditation is definitely where it's.
Well, I remember we spoke about in the first podcast. I think was that first.
I know someone who brings their kids along to ayahuasca ceremonies.
Oh,
yeah.
No, but it's a fantastic thing.
No, and just for the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And
How old?
this is in Brazil. I think he's like 6 or something, or 7.
really? Yeah.
Maybe a little bit older. But no, I at first I was like, oh, but then I realized it's just my Western mindset looking at this.
Yeah.
To each their own, yeah.
And then I see it actually happening in the ceremony. The kid was one of the most, like, he embraced it. He was part of it. Like, he was so powerful. Like, you should see it. Just his presence in the ceremony was so important, more important than most of the people there, in fact. So, I mean, I've changed my mind now. I mean, the kid's open to it.
That's something else we spoke about too. And the shaman I'm doing mine with in Peru, his 10-year-old son does it with you as well. And yeah, I would have back 2-3 years ago, I would have been, what? That's bloody ridiculous. But why not? You know, it's a lot better than, you know, we spoke again about, you know, if your child come home and said they want to take up cigarette smoking or alcohol, I really rather know what I'd prefer them to do.
Yeah.
And it ain't the alcohol at all.
I agree.
So yeah, the meditation aspect of it as more of a holistic approach to schooling. What's that? Transcendental meditation. That's it. There's transcendental meditation schools in the US opening up, and they've been for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's something that is quite important. Meditation for children, I think, is very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a friend, Net King. We may have spoken about it in one of the first podcasts, but Net King is a primary school teacher, and just quickly, he does meditations for the classes. He's waned a little bit, I think, but he had fantastic results with the kids, all of the kids. So whether they're ADHD or whether they were quiet and meek and reserved and introverted, they all had great results.
Yeah.
And they'd come in from lunch, or they'd come in from sport, or they'd come in from whatever. They'd finish doing maths, whatever it was, and they would love doing meditation. And another teacher friend of ours, Mrs. Fitzpatrick, she used to, and I'm not sure if she still does, do yoga with her primary school
awesome.
kids.
Yeah.
And they loved it as well, and especially for those ones who've got all the energy.
Yeah.
Just train yourself to be still, and then get the physical exertion from yoga, and then there's the other spiritual side to it and all the rest of it. Just brilliant. So let's mix it up a bit. Yeah, absolutely.
Kids are more in touch with their spirit. For sure.
Oh, when at that age. Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah. Well, you haven't had that battering down of like other kids or society in general saying, "What are you doing, you hippie?" You know, there's none of that. Yeah.
But as we're more exposed to culture and society, there's more layers,
exactly
more confusion. Like Jimi Hendrix says, there's too much confusion.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I was in year 1, we had my primary school teacher was, you could tell she must have been a bit of an old hippie. This was in '86.
I love
and we used to, I never really thought much about it, but we used to do the same thing, come back from lunch and she just gets to lay down there and we'd have to not go to sleep, but she'd just go, okay kids, just lay down and just, you know, I'll sort of tell you when it's time to get, just think about, just breathe. And I just used to thought it was just a time for a bit of rest. But she was actually helping us meditate. She was helping us to facilitate.
How old were you?
So I would have been 6 years old. Yeah, this was in year 1.
5 or 6, man. This is a transition, and this is in Darwin as well.
Yeah.
I think we'd have some kind of share a meal, like we would have a bit of fruit and some milk.
Yeah.
And then it was time for, I don't know what they called it, but it was exactly the same.
Yeah.
Very similar.
I remember a class, like my class never used to do that. It would have been great if we did, but the class next door to us, the year 6s, while I was in year 7, they used to do that. They used to have like milk and cookies, and then they'd have a period where they all lie down. And it just occurred to me. I never realised what they were doing.
Yeah,
that teacher was a really interesting teacher too. So of course he would have been doing that.
Yeah. And then they can't call it meditation probably, especially back then. They would have had to call it like rest period.
Resting.
Yeah. They couldn't say, okay, kids, now part of the curriculum, we're going to do some meditation. Ready? Yeah.
So hopefully, in all of this, you know, this movement, because we are a part of this flow of this movement. Hopefully in all this, without getting into it too much, it translates into policy change. We're talking it from the bottom up now, aren't we?
Naturally, man, naturally.
Yeah,
it'll all happen around us.
Yeah.
Power of the people.
And if it doesn't turn into policy change, then somewhere, which it will eventually, but somewhere before that policy change, there's going to be another school or two, Steiner, Montessori type thing, where there's maybe even a bigger emphasis on
as with
meditation or
practice comes
eating
first, and then that stuff comes in afterwards.
Yes.
Always the practice comes first, and that's the same with everything. Music too. First, you have the people practicing music, and you doing it from inside, you know. And then someone went, oh yeah, and started structuring it. This is the different, you know, this is music theory. This is
brother.
So they started putting theory to the actual practice, and that's where like the whole legislation will come in on top. It's like start practicing first, and then things will start changing up there. It's a natural process.
Right on.
Yeah, that's good.
Also with just say there's 3 prongs: emotional, physical, and spiritual. Does that sound about right? to want a being, emotional, physical, spiritual, something like this. If, depending on what age, the earlier that one of those goes missing, then the harder it is to get, because there's more layers and layers built on top of that, the harder it is to get that back. What I mean by that is, if I'm missing a creative or emotional outlet from childhood, and then that emotional lacking and creative outlet lacking is built on over the years and years and years to the point where you're a fully grown adult and you haven't had a creative outlet, and all of a sudden that translates into not being able to communicate properly, or not
becoming an accountant.
And frustrated and depressed, and you're losing your hair.
Yeah.
Whatever, blah blah blah. It keeps going.
Sure.
So very key, and I've actually found on a personal note recently, I've discovered. I'm so proud, so happy. The didgeridoo. And I've said for years, I don't know if I've told you this before this podcast, but I've said for years, excuse me, that it's my favourite instrument, followed by piano and violin and all the rest of it. Oh, vocals number one, voice box. But I'm so happy that I've finally picked up the didgeridoo, and I've got the circular breathing going, and I've got a couple of friends who are also playing it. My creative outlet has been found, and I'm building something very strong around that creative outlet, and I've only been playing for 4 weeks, and I feel great.
You found your creative outlet. You found your
big
instrument.
time. It used to be just cooking.
Yeah.
But I think that was a bit of an excuse. Oh, my creative outlet's cooking, guys. Yes, you can be very creative cooking. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
You need to find a difference.
That's right.
Yeah.
I needed more.
Yeah.
I wanted more. And then blow me down, I finally picked up a didgeridoo, and
Yeah.
Right.
Well, creativity is such an important part of the human experience, and I really think if it wasn't for creativity, we wouldn't have evolved to the position we're in now. Creativity has given us the wheel, has given us agriculture. I mean, maybe the consent necessity was that as well, but it gave us technology and the arts.
Imagination and creativity.
Imagination and creativity, it's such an important thing, and are we really, when we're children, given that sort of leaning or sort of positioning towards creativity? I think not. I think it's more about it's more about you need to do this in order to become, like you said before, become a functioning member of this structure in this society we've got.
Functioning, that's the key word.
But because of that, then it loses sight of who we are intrinsically as a human being.
Creativity should not be an art class.
No, exactly.
Should be a part of every class.
Yeah.
Mathematics. Let's be creative about mathematics.
Yeah.
Blah, blah.
I can't mention any names. I have to be really careful about what I say here, but I know that there are a lot of mathematics lecturers who smoke a lot of marijuana.
Tell us.
No, I can't. No, but imagine that kind of creativity coming through in your mathematics.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be. Mathematics is in its pure form, it's not applied. It's another thing where it starts in the creative mode and then it turns into something where you structure it. But mathematics is, wow, I can only imagine having such an open mind while doing mathematics and discovering,
science as well, and
science can play there.
I think it's I don't know if it's actually been proven or shown that it's true, but the guy who I can't think of his name, who founded the DNA double helix, was on LSD at the time. Yeah, he sort of worked out, for whatever reason, whatever he was doing, that and the LSD, it was what sort of helped facilitate that finding. Yes, if you could combine science and mathematics with drugs, as long as what we call proper drugs, and dream state as well.
Dream state is also a lot of where
big
creativity
time
comes from.
Right.
Down in those dreaming levels, there's some serious
especially if you go into that with intent.
Yeah.
So I'm going to dream tonight, and a part of that dreaming is I'm going to solve, cancer or whatever. Get some kind of insight that way.
Do you guys know who Descartes is? Descartes is the considered the father of modern. The father of modern day physics. Yeah. So I think it's around the 1600s that he was around. He was French. Anyway, the story goes he was off in the French army going around Europe doing whatever they're doing, and they set up camp in Germany somewhere. Just so happened to be the hometown of Albert Einstein about 200 years later. And an angel came to him talking about dream state. This brilliant mathematician this angel came to him in his dream and said, I had to take it off my phone the other day, but I'm going to try and remember it. Something along the lines of the knowledge of nature should be achieved through number. And then that got him going on, bang, okay, and that's from there he started physics. So if it wasn't for that original dream state scenario of that angel coming to him and telling him that, we might not have physics maybe just as we know it today. Maybe it might have come along later on. That's what got the ball rolling for him. It was a dream state. It wasn't just him like working out on a sketch pad one day and trying to use his brain and what he'd learned, what he'd been conditioned to. Yeah. It was something external to that. It was a dream state. Yeah, really, really interesting.
So he said something like the knowledge of nature should be found through number.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah.
You should also reverse that.
I lost all my notes off my bloody phone the other day, but
should be discovered or something like this through nature, because it's
nature's got everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
nature's
it's
got
the application of all of it.
Nature has got mathematics in it.
Exactly. Well, like we've spoken about previously, I'm sure.
The Fibonacci sequence.
And sacred geometry and.
But even down to just about any level of mathematics that you can get to, you can find it in nature too. I mean, all forces, vectors, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. I mean, everything's out there. It's all represented.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's how people discovered mathematics in the first place.
Right,
observations.
I found the quote. It's the conquest, which the word conquest doesn't really sit. That's an egotistical thought pattern. But the conquest of nature is to be achieved through measure and number. So
conquest meaning
taking over,
understanding.
I don't know. I'd take it more as a human need to take over an environment. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm being cynical, but yeah, understanding. I guess
technical meaning of conquest for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the way it was meant was something like conquest is an understanding.
Well, not particularly, because have you seen what we've been doing to the environment the last 200 or 300 years?
Well, yeah. Which actually makes me physically ill.
Fuck, so much, dude. So much. It's ridiculous. But then, what can we do? Again, lead by example, and then there are plenty of other people doing that,
Yeah, it's like I just want my parcel of land that we shouldn't have to pay for, but anyway, parcel of land and just look after it, man. I want to be the guardian and ranger, all these wonderful words of a piece of land, and bring the environment back.
Sure.
Anyway, so I love it. Descartes.
Should we talk a bit about the synchronicity subject?
Always.
Is that okay?
Let's do it.
Something I'm
for sure.
interested in, and I guess I want to get your take, both of you, on your take on synchronicity and the means. And should maybe can I quickly just tell my quick story about what happened to me the other day when I was at the Royal Show again, that bastion of experience. But so I've been there for the last 2 years working the Royal Show. I'm at uni at the moment, so I just do some work there when it's on. And the people next to me own a clothes store in Fremantle. They sell music shirts and things like that, band shirts. And been talking to them a little bit in bits and pieces. Anyway, on Saturday, just going the last day of the Royal Show, I thought we were going to have a good chat to them. And we're talking about exact same things us guys have been talking about the consumerist bullshit nature of it and of the Royal Show. And then I said, but I'm optimistic of the future. I think, things are working out. There's little communities developing. And the girl, Adele, it's a husband and wife, Adele goes to me, what communities? I said, I thought I'd talk about Will and Catherine first. They do these cacao ceremonies in Fremantle. She goes, yeah, we know them. And I said, okay, do you know much about ayahuasca? And she goes, yeah. And they both start laughing, and all fucking three of us just had these shivers just go down our bodies. And I said, and then I think she said first, she said, yeah, I've just got into it this year. My first experience was with Darpan. Do you know who he is? And I said, my first experience was with Darpan as well. Turns out her first ceremony was a night after you and I were there. These people, out of all the people that
with her husband, boyfriend?
No, he hasn't done it yet. He's going to be doing it hopefully soon. But
and they know Will and Catherine as well. Wow.
And they know, and the loving Living Heart tribe. Was it?
Yes.
They're part of all them as well, and it's just something we need to sort out if we're going to that thing at Culture. Have you got the email about that? Is it gig on at Culture? Yeah, in Fremantle. You went about it. Yeah. We need to sort that out too today. But that to me, that is a massive synchronistic event like that. I was supposed to meet those people, and that's just one of 4 or 5 I've had over the last 2 or 3 years. I think it's more about just showing that I'm on the right path in my direction in this life. It's just a sign that, okay, this junction, this point in, if it's a node in the multiverse, or just if there's only a single universe, you're on the right path. I think it's a sign that when you have synchronistic events, that things are as they should be. They're happening at times. But I want to get your guys' take on it as well, on the synchronicity and how you can try and achieve synchronicity in your life and what it means.
Can I jump in?
Go for it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's about achieving synchronicity.
Yeah,
it's always there, always, and it happens moment to moment to moment to moment all of the time. It's just about trusting your intuition and going with the flow. I'm finding that I'm following coincidences and following synchronicities daily, and it happens more than just once a day. I'm getting things popping up all over the place, and it's kind of a little bit scary, but it's so welcoming.
It is a little bit scary, isn't it?
Very scary.
Very comforting at the same time. It's a weird juxtaposition.
I've always been so anti that.
Yeah,
I've always been so anti that. I've been so like, it's just a coincidence, like relax,
Yeah. No such thing as a coincidence.
Yeah.
But is it
just statistics,
Maybe it's both.
It's both. It has to be both.
Yeah.
You need to have one with the other.
Because there is this universe really is a dualism. We have to have the yin and yang, the binary. So I think it probably is both. Yeah.
So I feel like these synchronicities and opportunities, I like to think of them as opportunities, are there all the time.
Sure.
All of the time, like just 100% of the time. And it's a matter of once you become in touch with yourself and understanding yourself and realizing that you are then placing your personality, you're filtering the world through your personality. Once you understand who you are, you can kind of see through that, and you can see these other things coming up, and you can grab opportunities as they come up, and they kind of guide your life through, it's instinct. That's one thing that humans are a bit lost touch with. It's your instinct. Intuition. It's about following all of that.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking through that filter of your personality, you don't have those layers. No matter how balanced and meditative you might be, you don't have any of those layers of confusion. So you're
very stable.
You're as close to a pure being as you can, by being clean as well, by eating better, eating well, and all that kind of stuff as well. I love that. Sorry if I...
No, that's okay. No, it's great. So I think the ultimate goal for all of us, something that I've started to, you're talking about creating those synchronicities. It's not about creating, it's about becoming aware of it.
Sure.
And you've got this kind of...
No, you're right, definitely.
There's this energy flow like this around you. Yeah. And you're always going in and out, interacting with the entire world around you all of the time.
Sure.
And so it's about just becoming aware of that. And trying to maintain that all of the time.
Yeah. And you do that by, like Ross was saying, through meditation, through healthy living, and just being open, like you said originally, just not saying no to things and being open to people as well.
That's a good one. Not saying no, man. I really like that one.
Not through fear can drive us to not say no to meeting someone, or like I wasn't 100% comfortable going talking to these people next door. I just felt like, oh fuck it, I should just go talk to them and have a bit of a chat to them. And I'm so glad I did, because I really think I've got firm friends out of it now, and because we've got that common experience, and it's so important. It's doing that, and then also allows for this community building that we're trying to develop, like all three of us are a part of, and many more out there now. It's part of this community that's developing, especially in Perth, but also in other parts of the world, and then hence with technology sort of interlocking each other. It's important that we do that we stay open, that we remain open for these experiences, for these synchronicities to be open to us. Yeah, very, very important.
I think I totally agree with what both of you said. Go so far maybe as to say that not only is it very important, but it's vital for true human evolution. I think that technology
and
can
fighting
help
the system.
Technology and
using the system.
Everything that stops us from being what we can be, our higher selves, everything that stops us, that's taken us as far as it can, with it, give or take a little bit. Technology can take us a little bit further, nanotechnology, and they can probably use little bits of technology with our DNA eventually. But I think I know the other side of it is to be open, like you're saying. It's absolutely vital for human evolution. I mean, we're at the start of a new cycle, Mayans or not. There's a new cycle starting here. It has started, and this movement that we're talking about, it's a bit of a movement, and this community building is here amongst us now. Are we going with the flow, or are we going to stay down at this lower vibration, let's say? And of course we're talking about getting on it and going with that flow. It's absolutely vital, and let us share with everybody like we are now. Let's just share this intent and love and no fear. Stop saying no. It's vital. There's no lesson.
Going back to your comment about technology, I have to slightly disagree with you, but I have to do that to agree with you. Okay,
cool.
Because technology, I think, is slightly distracting, of course, and it's taking us away from this. But can you imagine if we all globally were able to wake up, get into this cycle of things, and use technology? That is just taking it to the next level. It's taking things to the next level. It's all about us. We're not using technology correctly right now, human race, the human species. We're not using it the way we should be. We're supposed to be using it for good.
We're using it against nature, it would seem, when we should be using it to enhance.
Well, we are too. I think there's a binary with that as well. I mean, there are people that use it. I mean, you think about just something simple like these podcasts. I mean, what other times could you get like 3 people together and not be distracted by a fucking phone or what's going on in the background? Just talk like we're talking for an hour or 2 hours, or Joe Rogan has like 3-hour podcasts. Technology helps facilitate that. And then also technology helps to facilitate these conversations and these knowledge or learnings to the wider community as well. And
these are the people that I'm talking about, the ones that need to use it correctly, and they're starting. There's still a lot of shit out there.
Definitely, no doubt about it.
People are just not cleaning up their presence online. They're not using the technology the way it should be used.
The other thing that I'll add as well, and you briefly mentioned it before, how important, in inverted commas, the dream state is to synchronicity and to everything. I know this. I know that as much as there is to learn in this physical realm, there is equally, if not more, but let's just say it's a bit of a binary, there's equal opportunity to learn in the dream state. So if we're talking about synchronicity in this physical state, man, women, I mean, Jesus, it's absolutely the same there as well. And the difference, I believe, I don't know, but I believe the difference in synchronicity in the dream state or the astral is that there are less walls and boundaries. You can go to any realm that you want to. You can even wake up and come back to the physical. But the synchronicity and the awareness of the synchronicity and the creating or observing of synchronicity, if you can get onto it in this physical world, which we're kind of onto it now, translate that with intent and all the rest of it, a bit of practice and a bit of know-how, translate that into the underworld dream state, then it just works off each other, and before you know it, you're through the roof. The synchronicity. I know that the dream state and the astral world is very, very, very important here.
So harnessing that for this realm here, this physical realm.
Big time.
I had this dream on Saturday night. I'll tell you guys a little bit about it, but it was to do with this woman that I met her in 2005 on a plane back to London. She lives in London, and I love this woman a bit, and I've got no doubt that if we lived in the same city, we'd be together, but it's just, separated by distance, so it hasn't worked out that way. But I had a dream that I was with her in London, and she was pregnant to a guy who was just flown into London and got pregnant to him, and he went away and wanted to come back. And in this dream, I was like with her, and I was like so fucking jealous, I was like, this woman that I love, she's fallen pregnant to someone else, and she wasn't happy, and she was really, and I was like, trying to sort of console her and hug her, but then deal with the fact I couldn't be with her because she was pregnant to someone else. It sort of made me really realise that my dream states are for more my own consciousness development, for me to learn about my ego, distrust,
your fears.
My fears, yeah, exactly, to learn from that. But then what happened, it felt like, do you know what it felt like? It was so intense. It felt like an ayahuasca, when I was under the influence of ayahuasca. It was that intense, and I felt that emotionally crippled and in pain about it all, fighting my jealousy. And then I woke up, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I thought, fuck, I've got to message Sonia, and I'm sure she's right. My name's Sonia, to just see if she's all right. I woke up, I looked at my phone, and there was a fucking message from Sonia. She just messaged while I just must have been in that dream state. So I was maybe connecting into something. Oh no, it could have been coincidence as well.
Joking, are you? Are you for real?
What do you mean?
I'm dead set serious.
It was a coincidence. That's what makes it so special.
That's
Yeah.
synchronicity, right?
Yeah, man.
That's beautiful, man. That's
So
sensational.
and then yesterday I went to yoga in the morning, and it all came back to me again. And yesterday I was knocked for 6. I was like shell shocked. A friend of mine messaged me and said, she was at yoga as well. You alright? I was like, no, I'm not really alright. I just had something happen to me in this dream last night, and the occurrences that happened after that. But I really think that my couple of years of meditating, of different psychedelics, has helped me to become more open. That's one of probably about a few dreams I've had over the last 3 or 4 months.
No doubt, confirmation.
Yeah.
This is great. That's wonderful, man. That's a more synchronistic event than the one at the Royal Show. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that was still doing my head in as well. Like even yesterday, and yesterday was pretty quiet. But yeah. So I think that, like you said, Ross. I mean, if we can get to a point where we can help develop that and facilitate that more for our own life, there was lessons to be learned in that dream I had about this girl who I love. Similar to what happens when you take ayahuasca. It was hard. It was intense. I woke up exhausted. My heart rate was going, but I learned something out of it.
Yeah.
What you gotta, when you're going over it in your mind and you're actually assessing your dream and trying to see what lessons there are there, I found with me that in the dream state, these things I'm still working on. There's lots of them there.
Yeah, me too.
These things that, like for example, your jealousy. It might not necessarily mean that you have a lot of jealousy in your life, but that is definitely that was a big part of the dream, right?
Yeah.
So that's telling you something. It's about your personality, and it's about you trying to discover who you are and cleaning that shit out.
Sure.
And
stripping back.
Yeah. So even in the dream state, you still have those restrictions, those walls up.
Yeah.
You still have that, and you're desperately holding on to them because that's what you think you are.
Yeah.
And that's something I realized using dreams to actually discover myself as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because and then be able to detach from those things. In my first ceremony, I think I spoke to you about, and Ross, as well, I was really shown who I intrinsically am, and who everyone is, who all souls are. We're not our ego, we're not jealous, we're not there's no such thing as separation. But even in the dream state, we can still feel that, we can still affect that.
Yeah.
So the dream state then is about becoming aware of that, knowing what it is, and trying to again purge that, or let go of that. Yeah, we can use it to really help ourselves and facilitate that.
Just like in this physical world, you got to strip back some shit to become balanced, or an enlightened being, something like this. Enlightened, I don't like using that word, but
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm very careful when I use it. Yeah, that's the goal. That's absolutely the goal.
And awareness as well.
So we learn certain
Liberation
lessons.
is another one too.
What?
Liberation is another good one.
Yeah, sure.
Liberation from those things. Once you sort of peeled them away, you can be liberated. Liberated from those things, from
the hooks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you learn certain lessons. You go from primary school, secondary school, tertiary education, and into the workforce. That kind of education in this physical world. In the dream state, the same thing. I mean, I'm so interested in the dream state right now. I'm learning about lucid dreaming and practicing. I've been doing a dream recall book for the last year and a half, and I open it to any page, and when I need to, it's almost like tarot cards and readings, or going to see somebody. When I'm in the need, I feel, which is very rarely, I just go, what my little dream journal has to say. And it's amazing.
Beautiful.
Every single time, which has only been 3 or 4, but that's the only time I've needed it. It's absolutely amazing, and I forgot about this. And so incredible. So if you I was very interested as well when we were up at Gijigata. You were talking about your 10-day Vipassana and how your dreams changed.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to get into that now. That might be a whole other podcast, but that was incredible.
Can you give us maybe just a quick
rundown?
rundown of it?
Huge.
Well, it's like it's not that the
Sensation.
actual dreams changed, and it's not that my cycles changed. It was more that I continued to bring my awareness through into the dream state.
Yeah.
So after all this meditation, and really, really mindful meditation, where you're focusing your awareness on a certain point, then I realized that I was bringing that awareness into my stage 1 sleep, into my stage 2, down into my deep sleeps, which were a little bit uncomfortable because I'm sitting there and I realise I'm asleep, you know. But then, so I would go through this period of about 4 hours where I'd realise I'm asleep, but every time I'd come back up to stage 2, I'd kind of roll back over, you know, because it was uncomfortable. You want to let go. You're so used to just letting go. So then go back down to deep sleep, come back up, roll over again. And then somewhere in the middle of the night, after about 4 hours or so, 3 hours, I realised I was going into dreaming. And then some of my dreams were so intense, it was like, I was aware. Most of them, I'd say, you know, roughly about 4 or 5 REM cycles each night. And in each one of them, I'd say at least half of them I was lucid. So I was completely aware that I was dreaming. Completely aware.
I reckon that's a bit of a goal there.
Yeah.
To get to.
And it's all about this meditation, about awareness. So once you bring this awareness about you, it's easy to, you just naturally do it. And
the body wants to do it.
Yeah, I feel like it. Absolutely. It's felt so natural. But then, I mean, one particular thing that really stood out to me was the fact that I even had a dream that went across the 4 to 5 different states. So it started at some point. Then I felt myself come out of that dream, you know. But then I went back into the same dream, but the next part of it.
Yeah,
and
like scenes.
I felt like it was a big documentary on this girl's life from when she was born up until when I moved in with her. Not in a romantic relationship, more housemate. So she was just telling me. It was almost like I knew her story leading up to moving in with her. And then I lived with her for a while, and I developed an attachment. She was a really close friend. I liked her. You know, it was just in one night.
Cool. Is that a woman you sort of know?
No. Just complete dream, fictional character in my dream.
Sure. She's probably not fictional though, man.
Maybe I'll meet her one day.
She's not. So I did. That's great. And when you told us about that the first time, I was so interested and opened myself towards it because I love my sleep and also love dreaming, imagination and creativity.
Sleep's the best, eh? Oh, so good.
Yeah,
so good. And how important it is to get your 8 to 9 hours sleep, which I have not had in years, and leads to other things which we don't need to talk about now. Other slightly unhealthy things like depression comes up a higher chance of. Good sleep is very important for dream state. So what I've learned after doing a bit of research on lucid dreaming. Simple, like you said. The stage is something like this. You go to sleep. You're in what they call a hypnagogic state. The hypnagogic state is a few minutes, which I'd like to extend to quite a few minutes. A few minutes of, let's just say, processing the day's events, but little dreams. I call them little dreams. I call them
Flash
visions.
Dreams,
I call them visions.
But
these visions, to me, have more times than not been very significant. And the ones that you remember more have been very, very significant. Like truly changing. They've helped me evolve. Anyway, so at the hypnagogic stage, as you drift into sleep, you can still be conscious, hearing things, and you get visions, boom, and then you're gone.
When you're in that state, if someone wakes you up and say, "Man, you were dreaming." No, I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't asleep yet. I was
listening to you, man.
I was still just resting. I haven't gone to sleep yet.
My partner says, "You were snoring."
Yeah.
You snored. I said, "Yeah, but I saw this, and I'm still listening to it." I'm so excited. When that happens, when somebody wakes you up, I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is what I just saw."
I see that as a bit of when I'm in that state too. It's almost a high as well. It feels like I'm having a high. I'm on a high.
You're releasing DMT.
Yeah,
it's
that's
the
right.
big apart from
it's the initial part of DMT.
There's no proof of that.
Yeah, there's no proof, but I believe that.
It's a theory anyway. Yeah.
I believe it to be the case because I feel great in that period. Anyway, so there's a hypnagogic state for a few minutes, and then they say 4 to 5 hours you're going to sleep. You're stripping back. Your body is relaxing. It's shutting down and it's recuperating and rejuvenating. And then after that 4 to 5 hours, you get 4 or 5 cycles of REM, 90 minutes. Every 90 minutes, roughly, on average, you have an REM period and you dream. And then you come out and then you have another 90 minutes. And it repeats. And that's exactly what you experience.
Yeah.
And they're very important, of course, and blah, blah, blah. The rest goes from there. So that's like a fundamental to lucid dreaming. You practice it. Dream recall is a part of it as well, the journal. I found out that I'm doing everything right through natural interest.
That actually got me into it in the first place. I used to keep a journal when I was young, like 14, 15 kind of thing, and I got interested in lucid dreaming, so I kept doing that, and that's what actually got me my first ever lucid dream. it was because I became aware.
Can you define lucid dreaming for a minute?
Yeah. In case you don't know, lucid dreaming is when it's when you're in a dream state, but you actually become aware that you are actually dreaming. So you're bringing your awareness into that state, and there's different levels of it. You can, at first it's just the recognition that this is a dream, and often you get really excited and wake up from it.
Yeah, you can freak out. Like, oh fuck, what's happening?
That's normally what happens to me.
And then there's like the next stage would be like actually going out and exploring your dream, and then the next level of lucid dreaming, when you can actually start to manipulate stuff, that's when they say you're fully lucid, when you can actually have this interaction with the dream that's going on.
Yeah. I think that when you can get to that state too, it also opens you to other occurrences happening to you, like entities as well. So maybe from other realms, etc. As my belief, because that's what happened to me. But there's certainly stages of lucid dreaming up to a point where what would be the end point? I don't know.
Well,
connection with source, maybe. I don't know.
There's a style of yoga which I did you read that book? The one I sent you?
That's huge, man.
Yeah, it is huge.
Ross ain't a reader, man. Ross ain't a reader.
I looked at the content page, man. I thought,
did you look through the pictures?
It's
no pictures.
It's
what?
It's
what's it called?
It's from a Tibetan monk.
Okay.
It's to do with dream yoga.
Okay.
They've got a term for it.
Really?
Have you read it?
No. I just read the first chapter and kind of got into the concept.
The feel of it.
So what is the concept?
The concept is that it teaches you to become lucid, and it uses your dreams to reach enlightenment. So
by doing yoga in this
not
realm.
yoga like this type of yoga. Yoga, the word yoga means practice.
Sure. Okay.
So it's any practice. You can have yoga of anything, really.
Right.
So this yoga is about, first of all, realizing you're dreaming. So it's going to that first step. Then the second step, obviously, is to then, to remain in that state and have the full awareness.
Mm-hmm. Then
Then to start manipulating. But then they take it even further, where this is the cool stuff. Yeah. They start closing. Like, you can take any object and manipulate it so that it goes down to zero mass. So you can pretty much shut down your dream.
Yeah, right.
And then the final realization is that your body is part of that dream. It's also a dream object that you can shut down.
Sure.
And so once you've shut everything down, you exist in just pure consciousness.
Right, okay.
That's the part.
Yeah, right.
That's keep posting. Are you practicing? Are you still
on and off? I found right now I've kind of had a moment with mushrooms that told me that I was smoking too much marijuana. And I realised that when I smoke weed before I go to sleep, I don't remember any of my dreams.
Yeah, that's why I stopped.
Completely out all night.
And then when you do stop, you can have quite vivid dreams as well.
Yeah. So at the moment, I've just started getting more back into it because I've stopped smoking weed completely. I just smoke every now and then for a purpose of a ceremonial when I'm with somebody and we have intention. But my dreams are coming back for sure. I'm starting to get more into it.
I went years without recalling dreams.
Yeah.
And then when I realised that I'm not smoking anymore, they started creeping back. I thought, wow, this is cool. I want to put a bit more intent into this.
Yeah.
Blow me down. Stage 1, stage 2, lucid dreaming, and all the interest. And then you start talking about your passion and all your experiences through synchronicity. I'm there.
It's amazing what your mind can do, isn't it? Our minds are powerful.
We've got no idea, really.
Yeah.
We're
imagination. Just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Scratching the surface of it.
Do you think technology can help with that, though? I mean, it's going to take our own consciousness as well to delve into that as well, but I think technology can help. I mean, there's that theory that there's going to be that point in time where technology is going to be able to record our dreams, and you'll have a dream, fucking download it, plug it into your TV with your surround sound going, and you'll be able to replay the dream that you had and analyze different parts and pause and rewind and that's what happened. Oh, that's what that meant. I've got no doubt that'll occur one day.
Technology is definitely is a tool that we should embrace to get the intellectual understanding. But there's always the other side, which is the same with everything. Everything in life is your experiential understanding.
Sure.
So you need to be able to experience something. You can have all the experience in the world and not intellectually understand something,
Yeah.
then it's useless. You can have all the intellectual understanding in the world and not actually experience it, and that's useless. It's when you combine them that you actually
Yeah.
get this wisdom of what you're actually doing.
And unfortunately, though, in our world, people tend to either be one or the other. It's very rare that you'll get both that can achieve both at the same time. And I know that was maybe a point of discussion we wanted to look at as well, Dennis. Did you want to talk about that a bit more, the experiential versus the intellectual knowledge of what's
I've
happening?
come across a word that actually means that. It comes from a Greek word called praxis.
Okay.
Or praxis, I don't know how you pronounce it. Praxis?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and that's kind of... Praxis is more about when you have this concept, when you've done that whole experiential thing and the intellectual, and you understand this concept, it's then how do you communicate it to other people?
Yeah,
and
right,
this
right.
is praxis. Praxis is, once you've had this understanding, you then have to... And the way you actually teach, the way you learn as well, it's a teaching and a learning technique called experiential learning. It's where you both go into the experience at the same time. And I believe this is what people who spoke Sanskrit used to do. So instead of like in English we talk, blah, 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 you get an intellectual understanding of what I'm doing. You try to relate it to some of the experiences you've had in the past. Whereas if we sat down right now and actually all of us got ourselves into this experience and intellect at the same time, we really don't need many words actually.
That's right.
We could,
It's like jamming with music.
exactly.
You communicate through the guitar, through the digits, through the harmonicas or whatever.
Yeah.
You can create sadness, happiness, and all of that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
So yeah, exactly. So, but it's more about both of you. Like you could both grab a dig and start playing, have really good experience or really good intellectual understanding, and then go off on your own tangent or whatever. It's when you come together on the same understanding, or whatever the concept is that you're trying to get across.
Sharing something.
Exactly. It's not one person teaching it and the other person learning it, even though that's ultimately what it is. It's that you're both going there together.
Yeah.
You know, and you sort of hold that concept together, and that's where the real learning comes.
I like that praxis. It adds to. It's changed my thoughts a bit for the better. I used to think we observe nature, whatever the environment. You gather information, data. You grab data. It turns into information. It turns into knowledge. When you learn, you exchange your knowledge, and then it turns into wisdom through sharing. I consider wisdom to be knowledge that you can communicate. Like I said,
but it
just
also
added to
requires
that
that understanding first.
Yes,
to be
so
able
praxis
to do
comes
the
into it.
communication. Yeah.
So wisdom / leaning into praxis.
Yeah.
So I've thanks for that, mate. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I've just changed the way I think about
Ah.
things, which is good.
Yeah.
So really about the individual achieving that state of really achieving that position or ability to be able to do that is the practical process of praxis, I guess.
Yeah. And it's also in a way, if you think about it, it's kind of like getting a group consciousness too. You're both applying your awareness to a particular, it doesn't even have to be two, it can be many people.
Yeah.
But if you all apply your consciousness and your awareness to a particular thing, you can develop this thing together where you can all just sit in this state of awareness and actually just understand.
Well, like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you two can feel this too. We're all on the same fucking wavelength right now.
Yeah,
And now it's like this. You
Is
know?
this praxis now?
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely.
The praxis podcast.
Do we have to change our name again? But when you get that ability to do that, to be just on your own, or 2, 3, 4, 5 people, it doesn't matter, then that's when ideas come up and progression ensues, and hopefully with that the betterment of society as well. It can be used the other way as well, can't it? It can be used for evil, I guess, in quotations, but it's an interesting state to be in. You know,
can you imagine if I truly believe, I have faith in our society. I believe we are heading towards this Enlightenment era. And so just like in Sanskrit, where Sanskrit you might have one sentence, but that whole sentence, to translate it into English, you need paragraphs to be able to explain it.
Sure.
So, I think English is going to head that way. Once we go into this Enlightenment era, we're going to start using words like praxis and other words that we're going to take from ancient Greek, take from here. That word comes from ancient Greek. Then take from Latin, take from Sanskrit. We're going to inherit these words, and we're going to make up new words to mean what we're thinking.
Sure.
And so then I was imagining with a friend, we were just talking about this whole praxis thing, and in Sanskrit days, they would have talked slowly because English is very functional, so you need to say a lot to get your sentence across.
Yeah.
Whereas in Sanskrit, you just say one word and it means all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So you'd sit there and practice, and you'd just say that word, we'll just sit there going,
sure.
Right on, man.
You just contemplate it.
Yeah, you'd all come together on that concept. Then you'd say the next one, and you'd guide each other's thoughts through this method of language.
Yeah, sure.
Communication.
I struggle with communicating at times.
Yeah.
Verbally, big time. I ramble. I sometimes get lost on tangents.
Yeah.
I'm not lost, but I go off on tangents.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a struggle, but when I get there, it's normally a fairly good point. Depending on the topic, of course.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes struggle to relate extremely to what you're saying. Yeah.
When I first met you, Ross, I don't know if it's because you've changed or I didn't know you well enough back then, but maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, was it?
Mm.
But when we'd be in a group of people, you'd barely say a word.
Yeah.
Is that, have you changed since then, or is that?
No, it's probably.
Were you back the same?
I'm probably similar. I don't know actually.
Because you do, when we're in amongst a group of people now, you seem to be more open and, I don't know, extrovert's the right word, but talkative, I
certainly
suppose.
Extrovert, but I certainly am aware that I've got an opinion and I like mine sharing, especially if it's relevant.
Yeah.
It's adding to the conversation. But I'm more, I don't know if introverted is the right word either, but I do have a lack of confidence in sharing in big groups. Because I have a fear, it's all love or fear, right? I believe I've got a fear of being misunderstood.
But then you know what you've got to think of is just the 2 words, fuck it. Really? Because people will learn from you. I mean, people, there'll be some things you say, people go, no, it's bullshit, Ross. What the fuck are you talking about? Other things I go, oh, wow, yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing that, Ross. Mm. So you just got to say, fuck it. And just
use your eyes. When you're talking to a group of people, you can see who's understanding you because they're watching you. And their eyes are focused. The ones who are not understanding, their eyes are going around. Yeah. As soon as their mind starts wandering, their eyes move around a bit. But if they're watching you, then you know they're understanding you.
I'm pretty intuitive that way.
Yeah, that'll give you the confidence to keep going.
Yeah, so in a group like this, so something happens to me from a small group of between 2 people or higher. Something happens for me in a small group compared to a big group. I found it easy and natural to communicate like this.
Yeah, I think most people do though too. Yeah. I think you'd find it more difficult to communicate amongst a large group of people. Yeah. Some people just find it naturally easy, and they'll be like the one with the gob on them, and they just keep talking and talking. But that's fine.
What has helped me, and I'm sure others, helped in inverted commas, is sharing of intent and sharing of your experiences after ceremony.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Talking from the heart is a massive thing that I've been able to get out of these ayahuasca ceremonies. So I've never been able to do that before. I was always talking from the head.
Mm-hmm. Be vulnerable.
I've been able
to get on with it.
Certainly talk from the heart a lot easier now. I actually find it very enjoyable because you can communicate. That's the best way to communicate.
You cut out all the bullshit.
From the heart.
You just be real.
Yeah.
The heart real.
Yeah.
In that heart space.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, guys? It's very important. Yeah. Maybe look at wrapping up. What do you think?
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's something that links everything that we've said so far. I mean, what did we start with? We started with
childhood development,
education development. Synchronicity, dream state. Is there something that sums up all of this? I mean, is there the parenting and education? Is that like praxis? Is it praxis? Is it? There's something there, I know, because we've got something
that links them all in. Yeah,
I feel like it's about, like, you're right, that we've had this kind of common leaning
interactions between parents and kids.
Yeah. So it's about, to me, it's about the development and getting this development right. Because once you can develop correctly and get a human being to come up to its full potential, that's what we need to do. We need to try to, all of us, reach our full potential. I mean, unfortunately, I think we might, because of our upbringing, we might not reach that full potential, but I want my children to be able to.
That's right.
And so it's about
intergenerational development as well.
Exactly. So bringing up our children so that they embrace this spiritual awakening that's happening. Yeah. They embrace it and use it, and don't forget about the past as well. And they want to I think that
transcend it and include.
Yes, bring it in. We're heading forward now. We're not heading back. We're not anything like that. We're not staying here. We're going forwards. Let's go.
But learn from that. Learn from those past mistakes, and which is something we've sort of struggled to do. I think as a species, I was learning from our mistakes. Past generations. You think of war as a prime example, but hopefully that does change. Yeah. and we can keep, like you said, just keep going with it.
Yeah. It's the Enlightenment era of the Western society, of the Western
no doubt about
world.
it.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Development through awareness.
Maybe that's something we can speak about on the next podcast. Is sort of what's happening now. I think it's definitely an interesting topic, and it's something we should discuss, and how we as individuals who we feel we're amongst it can help facilitate it for other people. Maybe we should look at doing that. I mean, we've touched on it in this podcast a little bit, but I think we should go into further discussion with it. But yeah,
talk about finding our roles and things like that.
We'll do that in a future podcast, so I think.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, guys.
Part 2. Yeah.
Cool.
We'll
Cheers,
do that.
guys. Well, that's good.
Yeah. Anything else you want to finish on?
I'm good.
Yeah.
That's fine, man.
I think that's sort of it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Peace and love.
Hare Krishna.
Namaste. Raho.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Sort of, if there's a few of you out there still watching this after about an hour and a bit, if you've got any questions or definitely anything that we missed or we're wrong on, cheers, mate. Should have you around more often. And we'd love to hear from you as well. And like Ross and I spoke out in the first podcast, and Daniel, I'm sure you're well aware too, it's all much about the learning experience for us as well.
For sure.
These
A
podcasts. So let's keep it going, I think, and keep learning. So until next time, we'll see you then.